Hello and welcome to KOCT Today. I'm Amy Forsythe, and we're in the new community camcast room at the KOCT Soundstage in Oceanside, California. Today, we're going to be learning more about Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, and we're proud to share our community with more than 40,000 Marine sailors plus their family members that live and work on the sprawling base that spans from Oceanside to Fallbrook to San Clemente. When we return, we'll welcome the Base Commanding General, Brigadier General Jason Woodworth, to learn more about the history, Marines training there, the large booms you might be hearing from time to time, and the regional economic impact the base has here in North San Diego County. Stay with KOCT. We'll be right back.
The volunteers come here and they socialize with the dogs and cats. They get to take the dogs out for walks, and that's not something we normally have time to do.
In addition to interacting with the dogs and cats, I would definitely pick up after them, wash them, do whatever I can to take care of them as if they were already being owned, so they get used to it before they're actually adopted, have a better chance of getting adopted. Come out and volunteer, even if you may not be used to animals. At least it gives you something to do, something to feel like you're not always working. Get some kind of entertainment in your day, your week, your month.
Welcome to the studio, General. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Amy. We're really privileged to be here with you today.
Wonderful. So we know Camp Pendleton is our partners to the north here, and a lot of people, hear the sounds and see the aircraft and know what's going on. But today we're going to talk a lot about the mission, your role, and how the base really interacts with the whole community here in North San Diego County and really all of California. So it's exciting to have you here in the studio today.
Really glad to be here.
Okay, so describe your functions and how you are the leadership role in the face of Camp Pendleton.
Okay, great. Thanks. My job is the Commanding General, Marine Corps Installations West Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, kind of a long name. My role is to run the bases and stations in the region. So there are 5 bases and stations in California, Arizona area that fall under the command. They're Camp Pendleton, the air station at Camp Pendleton, Miramar, Barstow, and Yuma. And then there's 3 other bases that we support, 29 Palms, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and then up in Bridgeport in Central California. And so essentially it's a little bit like a mayor's job to a certain extent, where we keep the base open, the lights on, power, energy, facilities, all of the restaurants and hotels and all of those types of things.
Well, that's a large role to play in dispersed operations across the West, really. And so in the terms of economic impact and the facilities that you support for the premier warfighting training base for the Marine Corps, Camp Pendleton just celebrated its 80th anniversary last year. And so you can see with our photos here, the vastness that the land, the environmental aspect to it, it's just really been a protected area for the mission of training the Marines. Can you describe some of that and the imperatives that you have to juggle in order to keep it a safe place for training and for families to live on the base?
Absolutely. It's, it's an amazing place. It's one of the last undeveloped parts of California along the coastline. Truly, it is unique in that way. That's 17 miles of coastline. But the heart of the base is the people. But the facilities that we run, the training ranges that we run, are the reason that it exists, is the opportunity for Marines to come from the sea, whether that's via air or water, and do landing exercises and maneuver into the center part of the installation where we do live fire exercises pretty much every day of the year, and have the opportunity to train as we think we're going to fight if we end up in a contingency operation overseas.
And a lot of our local residents here in Oceanside, Carlsbad, San Clemente, even Fallbrook. I live in Fallbrook and I hear and I see the aircraft daily. And so for the people in the nearby region that are within earshot, let's say, what do they need to know about the things they hear and the things that they see, and from a safety perspective, or framing it so that they understand that the imperative mission of training is that Camp Pendleton is just a really national strategic base for our Marines and sailors.
Absolutely. It's a one-of-a-kind place. It truly is. We do make a little bit of noise sometimes, but we also are residents of the neighborhoods that you live in, right? We have people who live on base, but more than 75% of our Marines and families live off base. We do the best to be good neighbors as much as we possibly can. We try and get information out to the community when we are going to be louder in different times of the day. But there is a requirement for us to continue to train. And some of that training requires high explosive devices that we would use in contingency operations. So there are sounds sometimes, and helicopters fly over my house all hours of the night, just like they fly over other parts of the community. And sometimes that can be, not ideal, but it is something that's required. And we try to be as open and transparent about when we're going to do that and get the information out to the community as best we possibly can.
For every generation, it has started with the call to serve. Discovering the purpose and the belonging earned with the title. Learning to dig deep and push through adversity together. Defending our nation and its people. It is a life of great worth and reward. But Marines are never really finished serving. Their commitment comes full circle, visible in communities across our country. This is Semper Fidelis, always faithful, always Marine, marking a path for the next generation.
So working on the base myself for many years, people would call in and complain, and, a reframe to help them understand, especially during OIF and OEF, Absolutely. Is that those are sounds of freedom, and those are the training requirements that have been set for us. So you can see some of the work that goes on Camp Pendleton, the vastness. 18 miles of coastline, right. And I think about 125,000 square acres of training ranges. Can you describe some of the other aspects to the base that?
Yeah. So the picture right here that we're on, you see Marines preparing to launch or land in the surf, right? And that's really what makes Camp Pendleton unique. There's nowhere else in the world that Marines and sailors can train together to operate, to come aboard from the sea in that littoral environment. And that's truly what the most unique thing about Camp Pendleton is that miles of coastline that we can use to get to the interior part of the base and work the different systems and equipment across the beach and up into the interior and into the hills and be able to train and maneuver and employ weapons systems.
And so, we hear it and see it all day. And if you think back, before the base was a training area, it was actually a working cattle
Absolutely.
Ranch. And there are remnants of that legacy still on Camp Pendleton as part of that rich California history. So can you describe a little bit about the history of the base and things that people don't know?
Yeah, we're really, truly lucky to be the caretakers of some incredible history. The original ranch house from the early 1800s is still it's nobody lives there anymore. It's a museum, but we do have the original ranch house with 3-foot wide adobe walls at the bottom, 1 foot wide at the top. Interesting structure that's still there. It was the original vineyard area for the mission here, Mission San Luis Rey. And then when this part of California became part of the United States in the mid-1800s, a rancher named O'Neill with the Flood family backing, the San Francisco Flood family, bought the ranch in 1882. And for 60 years, they operated this ranch, and this ranch was more expansive than just Camp Pendleton. It went all the way up to El Toro River, not on the coastline in parts, but it was almost 250,000 acres when the Marine Corps bought in 1942, 125,000 of those acres that is now Camp Pendleton.
And the base has done a tremendous job of preserving that without annexing for development. Yep. And so some of the pictures you see here are some of the history and the legacy of the Marines that first marched up from down near where Miramar is now, and they set up base camp in 1942.
That's right.
and some of those early days supporting Marines, preparing them for World War II, and then
Absolutely.
Korea, Vietnam, and then, of course, Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So having this multifunctional base as a launch pad for all the needs of the Marine Corps getting deployed. So through the years, the legacy of being stationed right here at Camp Pendleton.
Absolutely. Almost every single Marine that fought in the Pacific came through Camp Pendleton. We like to call ourselves the gateway to the Pacific, and it truly is for the Marine Corps, all the way up through Vietnam. 70% of equipment and men and women who deployed came through Camp Pendleton or El Toro at the time in Yuma, so MCI West. Bases and stations. So yeah, a lot of movement through, a lot of training goes on every day to get people prepared to do that. The heritage of the base, you mentioned the march up from what is now Miramar, right? It was not a Marine Corps base then, but it is now. They did training en route. They had the commander at the time, Colonel Erskine, had set up teams to attack his formations as they marched up. So it started even before they got here. And then in 1942, when the base was established, it became, it adopted the lapel pin you're wearing as the brand of the ranch, which is the original Texas Oklahoma brand, and it still continues today.
That's right. A lot of people might be familiar with that T&O, that Texas Oklahoma brand, and there's many stories about how that came, but you'll see that around throughout the base.
Absolutely.
And so the attributes of the base of what you're charged with protecting the environment, and then some of the culture, lifestyle, family support, recreational facilities, things of that nature. And it's like a city within a city. Yeah. People live there. And I have stories of people saying, I was born on the base, and so many great memories of kids growing up on base and the things that USO that are supported. We saw a picture of you doing a ribbon cutting with a Starbucks. Yeah. So there's many facilities for the residents of the base.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start at the end with the families piece. Our non-negotiable priority is Marines, sailors, and families. And we try to provide the best temporary hometown we possibly can for all of them. It's absolutely one of our most important missions, because a Marine that has a great family life is going to be better at work and will be able to do the mission better, right? So they're directly correlated. And families who are happier and enjoy their place they live and have good recreational opportunities, they're going to be more willing to continue on the Marine Corps family mission. We run a youth sports program. There are, 1,100, 1,200 people out at youth soccer on Saturday mornings in the fall, out on a couple of fields. There is everything from movie theaters to, campsites on the beach to a lake where we allow fishing, and there's hunting opportunities. I mean, you name it. There's all sorts of recreational activities that go on the bases.
Summer is here aboard Camp Pendleton, which also means it's the height of wildfire season. Last year was a historic year for wildfires across California, with 7,571 fires and burned 1,671,203 acres. In 2018, Camp Pendleton had a total of 117 fires that burned 4,070 acres. Fires are a natural part of life on Camp Pendleton, and the base is well equipped to handle it, with 11 fire stations strategically placed across its 125,000 acres. These stations altogether boast over 100 well-trained firefighters equipped with 12 Type 3 brush engines and 3 water tenders. These firefighters don't just sit around waiting for fires to happen. Every year, the fire department helps cut miles of fire breaks. These fire breaks prevent fires from spreading outside of the base by removing fuel to create prepared lines of defense. Every year, the department conducts heavy equipment interagency safety training, which last year helped create over 50 miles of fire breaks on the base. They also conduct critical skills refresher training, which qualified 110 firefighters for the 2018 season. Camp Pendleton firefighters also support the surrounding communities through mutual aid agreements and training partnerships with agencies like Orange County Fire Authority, CAL FIRE San Diego, North County Fire Protection District, Cleveland National Forest, and the Oceanside Fire Department. It's not entirely up to trained professionals, though. It's everyone's responsibility to prevent fires this summer. Make sure you never toss your cigarette butts on the ground, avoid driving over brushes or foliage, and make sure to properly extinguish all campfires and grills before leaving the vicinity. For more information, please visit the following website.
tremendous family support and the library system on the base and restaurants, as you mentioned.
That's right.
Places to do camping, but people come from all over really the country because they either want to experience it or explore it, hiking and seeing some of the memorial sites that are on the base. There's been several new memorials in the past 20 years to honor those that were lost in Iraq and Afghanistan. Can people access the base? Tell us about your access policy.
So pretty much you have to be affiliated with the military or know someone who's affiliated with the military to be able to get access. So a Department of Defense contractor can't necessarily bring on a guest, but a military member or family member could bring on a guest to be able to take a tour or visit around. But we don't really offer tours right now. That kind of 9/11 and the 2001 to 5 period, that kind of started to go away on bases and stations. We've looked at some opportunities to do tours of the ranch house. We're going to continue to investigate those specific things in the mechanized museum that we have on base that you know about. We're working hard to try to find a way to be able to legally do that and allow opportunity. It would be escorted, of course, where folks would have to sign up previously and come on a bus or something like that. So we're working on that, but we don't have anything in place right now. So.
Okay. And what we're looking at here are some of the maps of memorial sites for those who do have access to the base, and a veteran or a retiree can come and explore the base and look at some of those memorial sites that preserving the legacy. And that's just been so important to have these memorials. And here we just, last December, when they dedicated this bronze statue to General Pendleton, this is in Mainside here. And so what can you tell people about these memorials that would be of interest for the people that live on base now or that have access to get out and see these sites?
As you know, Marines are pretty proud of their heritage and their legacy, as you, a prior active duty Marine, know well. And so we try to do our best to commemorate, whether it's battles or individuals or horses even, as you know about Staff Sergeant Reckless Memorial up there by the Pacific Views Event Center. The picture of the Camp Pendleton dedication, we had 3 of his granddaughters out that were in that picture that were out there participating in the dedication of that statue, and just really trying to make sure that we remember whose shoulders we stand on as we, in the legacy that we try to uphold as best we can every single day.
Wonderful. Well, so the name is Pendleton, Joseph Pendleton. I did a little research on him, and sadly, he died just before the naming of the base, but he traveled the world as a Marine and then moved to Coronado, became the mayor of Coronado. And so the legacy of his continues on with the base. And we talked about the recreational facilities and the museums that are on the base, and that those are a great source of pride, and for people with access can see those. And can you talk about the nonprofit, the partnerships that you have that support the military families and the military on base? Absolutely.
So there are 3 big ones that are on base, and they're kind of unique ones. The Armed Services YMCA is here, the Camp Pendleton USO is here, and the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, that is one of the non-federal entities that is recognized by the Department of Defense to be able to do fundraising and support for active duty members. And they have a thrift shop and some other activities on base that do great work for military families. But we get a lot more support from a lot of other organizations, as you know, Semper Fi Fund. There's Catch a Lift organization. There's people who provide weightlifting equipment and facilities. There's folks who come on. Most recently there was a return of a MEU, and one of the organizations came on with 120 volunteers, and they went into 1,200 barracks rooms on a Saturday and made the beds for them, put some cookies and treats out, and socks and shaving stuff and things for them coming off of deployments. And then just community events, whether it's the Oceanside event we just were at a couple of weeks ago, recognizing Marines, Operation the name escapes me right now.
The Operation Appreciation.
Yeah, thank you. Operation Appreciation, right? Yeah, we have a couple hundred, I think there were 800 young Marines that are going through training on Camp Pendleton, had the opportunity to come out and just be welcomed by a community and, given some chow, which they always appreciate, and the opportunity to hang out at the beach for a day. Just could not be more thankful for the support we get from the surrounding community, whether that's just in Oceanside, but all around the bases across the region.
Yeah, the partnerships with the nonprofits here, and people are so generous and
Absolutely.
so willing to help and want to be a part of that support to the military. And so those events and the community engagement, the outreach that the Marines do also and want to be part of the community. What would you tell people in Oceanside who either want to help or to support in some way? What would you share with them about the ways that they can support?
The Chambers of Commerce of many of our local cities do a lot. That may be a place to start. It's hard for a single family to, get directly into the base to be able to, participate in things. But there are lots of volunteer organizations out there that support, whether that's the USO, the Armed Services YMCA, and others that are looking for volunteers pretty regularly. A lot of our kids go to the local schools. We have 5 elementary K-8 schools on base, but all of our high schoolers go off base. There's volunteer opportunities at high schools to help out with military kids and families. And military kids go through a lot in changing schools and different requirements in different states, and that's really a challenge. I've faced myself with a son who just graduated as a senior and a daughter who's a rising senior. It's definitely something that the more people are engaged and involved in those kind of things, they can help military families. And then if you have a neighbor who is a military family, we appreciate the thank yous and things like that. That's always nice. But there's definitely some things in the community that are really helpful for the organization, the family structure that are available to do.
Sure. Well, San Diego County itself
Absolutely.
is second to none when it comes to supporting the military and the veteran community. There's so many veteran organizations ready to support. And so for those veterans out there listening or who were stationed at Camp Pendleton, a lot of them get stationed at Camp Pendleton and then they get out from here or retire from here and stay in the area and then are a part of the community, whether it's education opportunities locally here, just some fantastic partnerships. You do have education opportunities from the partnered universities in the area.
You bet. Absolutely. And then, the jobs placement programs, there's a lot of job opportunities here. We transition over 10,000 Marines every year from Camp Pendleton, many of whom want to stay in the area and are looking for an opportunity for employment or training to a skill. And some of them will end up going back to their hometown, wherever they came from, but lots do stay here, and there's lots of great opportunities that are provided. So, and many of the local colleges and universities and schools are really helping young folks make the transition out.
Well, to be clear and fair, there's about 45,000 Marines stationed at Camp Pendleton at any given time, which that is just such a huge amount of people. I once heard it was a daytime population of 100,000 people.
Yeah, I think it's a little. We say about 80,000 people come and go, either live there or work there every day on Camp Pendleton alone. So but it's a big number. There's a lot of folks coming through the gates. There's a lot of folks who work there, and it's a big impact to the local community. Our salaries for civilians in the area is over $100 million in the region. That goes into employment for folks here, for our civilian folks. So there's a lot of opportunities to work here. On the bases and continue to support military families and their priorities.
Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton's mission is to operate a training base that promotes the combat readiness of the operating forces and other tenant commands by providing training opportunities, facilities, services, and logistical support responsive to the needs of Marines, sailors, and their families located in San Diego County, California. Given that primary mission, Camp Pendleton and other military installations in the region still manage to support and enhance the surrounding communities in a variety of ways. San Diego County has the largest concentration of military personnel in the world, with 110,000 active duty military personnel, 42,000 of whom are stationed at Camp Pendleton. The network of Marines, sailors, civilians, researchers, and the various supply chains in San Diego County represents a vital military ecosystem unparalleled to anywhere else in the world. The network is the single largest economic cluster in San Diego, with 22% of the region's jobs supported by defense spending that produced $50 billion of gross regional product in previous years. Camp Pendleton's service members are not just economic contributors, they are your neighbors and friends. Over 75% of the service members stationed on the base live in surrounding communities. Camp Pendleton events like the Mud Run provide an opportunity for the community to meet Marines on the base. But Marines also participate in community events like Fleet Week, Torrance Armed Forces Day Parade, and the Oceanside Independence Day Parade. Camp Pendleton covers more than 125,000 acres and 17 miles of coastline, and is one of the last undeveloped expanses of Southern California's densely populated coast. The base is home to more than 1,100 species, which includes 18 federally listed threatened or endangered species, and a free-roaming herd of bison. The base creates and maintains vital habitats for the various species on the base, in addition to sponsoring studies and assessments of their populations. Camp Pendleton has been a vital contributor to San Diego County since 1942, and with the support of its neighbors, will continue to be for years to come.
So we've got active duty military, we've got federal civilians, and we've got contractors and their family members of the Marines. So the economic impact to this region, and whether it's North San Diego County or Southern Orange County, and then of course you've got the East and Fallbrook, and people come as far away as Temecula, Murrieta to live and work on base for Marines. So they're coming from all parts. Can you talk a little bit about that economic impact and what we know about, you know, the region for businesses, small businesses, defense industry? Partners.
Absolutely. You know, the defense industry, obviously in San Diego, is absolutely massive, all the way up into LA Basin. I mean, it's incredible. You know, the Boeings, the Raytheons of the world, that all of these folks employed in those are all directly contributing to the Department of Defense mission. And San Diego Military Advisory Council does a military economic impact study every year to kind of describe what is across the region. And San Diego County area is among the top 2 biggest economic impacts in the country. I mean, it's absolutely massive with the numbers. I think it's 1 in 7 of people who live here are either military associated or family of military or a veteran. And so, you know, you think about that, 1 of every 7 folks, it's a lot of people who are impacted and part of this community that have done something to give back to their country, but also bring an economic benefit as well by being residents and taxpayers in the area and providing jobs.
So can you tell us about the environmental aspects, and the base is leading the way in terms of the environmental impact and ways that you're conserving, preserving. Can you talk to us about that? Yeah.
So my mother is a biology teacher. And when I told her that we have 26 biologists on Camp Pendleton alone, she was kind of, why do you have 26 biologists? We have a whole bunch of endangered species, over 20 on Camp Pendleton proper, and then across the region there are even more. Every single training evolution we do, the environmental team is providing that capability to do, whether that's drive a truck, a piece of equipment across the beach, fire into the impact area. All of that is created, that opportunity is created by the environmental team. They do an absolutely exceptional job protecting the species, but also making sure that we can do what we exist for. And that's the operational training for the Marine Expeditionary Force.
Sure. With the vastness of your training ranges, there are endangered species, there's wildlife, there's even a herd of buffalo.
Absolutely.
That myth is true. I've seen them personally myself. So just a tremendous effort to protect not only the interior, but, you know, the coastline, the vastness and the elevation. One of the highest peaks is more than 3,000 feet high. And so you have wildfires, you have floods from time to time. And so your team on staff are experts in preserving and maintaining this. Can you?
Absolutely. We have 3 water treatment plants. We manage 2 major rivers and all of the things that come with that. We provide energy to the installation. Much of it comes from off installation, but we also create some on installation. We have backup generators and all sorts of capability for distribution. We monitor, as we look at some of the buildings here in the pictures, we monitor temperatures and boiler conditions across the installation, all of those types of things that help us become more resilient reliable, and efficient. So we're saving money over time by providing new technology and looking at renewables, and all of those capabilities are really critically important for us. And you mentioned the bison herd, incredibly healthy, doing really well. And we have a large number of other species that we protect, and the habitat is one of the most important things that we protect. And there, a number of the species are literally almost nowhere else because they've been protected on Camp Pendleton, and there's no developers that can come build things on the base. They've remained able to survive, and we follow not only state law, but we follow federal law to the T, which isn't necessarily true for outside the gate, where folks are able to maneuver a little bit more than we are.
Sure. And so with the encroachment from the north and the south and the east, these animals have migrated to the base, and it's a safe, protected home for them. Absolutely. People don't think about it that way, but you're absolutely right. It is, if you're an endangered species, move on to a military installation. It's a joke, but it is true. They are protected, and we take great care to make sure that we are following all the Fish and Wildlife regulations and all the EPA environmental regulations that are out there, while we are still able to do the combat mission. And that's what the environmental team is specifically designed for, to make sure that we can maintain and increase our training capability, because every weapon system that one Marine Expeditionary Force is getting now is higher, faster, farther. We need bigger ranges. We need more space out there to be able to continue to operate and be effective. And so mitigating any challenges or overlap with the ocean, the land, the air. And you talk about the warfighter readiness, the mission, the heart of what the base is designed to do is to provide that space for the Marines to and joint services and multinational troops that come to the base. You're hosting these large-scale exercises because it's that imperative that we're facing right now. Yeah, combat readiness is number one, right? Is getting our folks ready to deploy and then supporting them while they're deployed. The training that leads up to and goes into that is all facilitated by all of the other things that we do here on the installation. And getting the MAGTAF together, the Marine Air Ground Task Force together to work with the air arm, the ground arm, the logistics arm, and the command element, and come in and operate as a unit and get the training from the ship, from the littorals across the beaches into the interior is absolutely critically important. We deploy, Marine Expeditionary Units, MUs. There are 3 stationed here at Camp Pendleton. They go out and back, there's usually 1 to 2 out at any time, and support of their families back here is also critically important. But all of those things come down to getting Marine combat forces capable and ready to walk out the door and do their mission. So a Marine Expeditionary Unit could launch from Camp Pendleton or really San Diego and find themselves supporting a humanitarian disaster or some sort of crisis response force. And so the training has to be a variety of different things to prepare for that. That's absolutely right. They train for the mountains up in Bridgeport. They train for the desert in 29 Palms. They train for the littorals here at Camp Pendleton out at San Clemente Island. They train for the flight operations over in the Yuma airspace. And, we're so lucky to be in such close proximity to incredible ranges, whether that's, naval ranges up in the north or off the coast, and Army up at Fort Irwin, and Air Force ranges in Nellis and up in Las Vegas area. And then our own Marine Corps ranges in the Yuma area are just, we are centrally located in a place where we can integrate as joint operations and upgrade our capabilities as we train, and the Marine Corps changes with Force Design 2030 and our focus on Pacific here at Camp Pendleton. Indeed. Well, we appreciate the service of those Marines there and the space that you provide, not just at Camp Pendleton, but as you mentioned, those other regions that are so vital to provide that variety. Future employment, likely we will employ as a joint force with the other services. It's absolutely critical that we train here. Project Convergence was here last summer, which is an Army-led joint exercise where they're looking at high technology or high-tech capability combined in the joint force. And all of the services participate in that. They'll be back next year in 2024 to do it again. And just it goes hand in hand with things like Rim of the Pacific that happens out in Hawaii as we all get ready to face what's next. So we talked about a little bit about how people can support on the outside, but if someone's looking to actually join the military, or you're a parent of a teen or a young adult, what would you say about them joining the Marine Corps or the military right now, and where things stand in terms of technology and the future of the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so I would say that the Marine Corps, I mean, clearly it's the best service. I mean, you know that, right? I'm married to a former Navy gal, so I we'll get grief at home, but it is absolutely an incredible opportunity. There's so much education and technology and things going on. If folks are interested, there's recruiters in most of the local high schools that come and visit. There's ROTC units at a number of high schools, and anytime if you Google Marine Recruiter, you'll have a phone call within a couple hours. I almost guarantee you. But just, it's an opportunity to do something different with their lives and be a part of something bigger. And it really gives people a sense of pride and ownership, and they're being asked to do something that many other folks haven't been able to do or can't do for some reason. And it's just the people that you know and get to work with that are all driven by this mission. It is really rare to find someone who's not invested in it. Right. And that's not true necessarily outside the fence line all the time. And that's what I think is the most important, particularly for young folks transitioning from high school or college. The opportunity to be part of something different and special as their first step in their career path is really great. So.
Well, you and your wife are a military family all the way, and you're supporting and leading from the front in terms of sharing your story and engaging with the community and bringing people together. Before we wrap it up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just really, truly a thank you to the community of Oceanside and all the communities in the area. We are so blessed to be so supported. It is absolutely an incredible place to live. I don't know what's going on with the weather this spring and into summer, but we'll get there. But it is absolutely just an incredible place to live, and we are just treated very, very well across the board. And it is there's so many things to do. You can I've lived in San Diego area for coming up on 20 years now, and there's still something every weekend. I think, wow, I haven't done that yet. And it's just a great opportunity for Marines to see a different part of the country if they're not from this area and be embraced by a community. So thank you to everybody. And appreciate the opportunity today.
Well, wonderful. The legacy of the base is you've inherited that role, and, it'll be yours to pass on and just maintain the opportunities that exist on the base and that community engagement. It looks like you had some concerts here on base, and just keeping that high level of engagement and make it a wonderful place to live and work for families, creating great memories and a good experience for not just the Marine, but the family to enjoy and continue serving.
Yeah.
So,
you bet.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been wonderful to talk with you, and we look forward to seeing more and learning more about the base here at KOCT. And we'll look for more great content and learning really about the preservation efforts on the base. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks. Thank you for watching our interview with the Commanding General of Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, Brigadier General Jason Woodworth, who was kind enough to come to our studios and share his thoughts. Want to learn more or sponsor a future program? Contact KOCT directly, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and connect with us on social media. I'm Amy Forsythe for this edition of KOCT Today. See you again soon.